connecting people, building communities, helping clients to build multi-generational wealth through real estate.
Today, we have the privilege of having Danielle Unsworth with us. She's been a source of inspiration for myself personally, watching her at her 40s, she turned 40 this year, and how amazing she has been doing, not only being a great inspiring woman, a great mom, but also a great real estate investor. Welcome, Danielle. So with multi-residential unit, are you focused on, let's say, how many units with multi-residential unit, how many units actually you have in mind as your goal? And also getting a mortgage, I assume that is much easier because there's some cash flow coming in that you can, the bank can actually rely on, knowing that, okay, there are current tenants paying this much, and you can even improve the quality of the living and bring it to another level. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So definitely for the unit number. So in order for you to be approved for commercial mortgages, it has to be a minimum of usually 5 and up. So for me personally, I like over 10, right? 10 and plus is a nice number because you're already doing the work. So having more doors makes it more efficient. So if you're already doing the underwriting for an 8-unit, might as well make it like 20, right? Because it's going to be all the same work anyways. You're just adding more doors. So in this case, but if somebody's, is just starting out and they want to buy their first multifamily, 5 and up is fine, like it's totally okay because they're going to learn the process, and then there's going to be maybe less tenants for them to manage right away. But in terms of financing, you're right. It's almost easier than a residential mortgage application because you have other things to consider. You're looking at, your net worth versus your income, through your salary, etc. So the lenders are more focused in terms of your net worth and also the income generated by the property itself. So it's totally different requirements. And I find the process actually easier because you can have more flexibility in terms of the lending requirements.
Great niche. But there is also not many multi-residential units available. If we have issues with residential single-family dwellings, I would say that with multi-residential, then the lack of enough supply is even stronger. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So apartment building, because they're totally two different asset classes, apartment buildings, sometimes a lot of them are being bought and sold amongst investors. So you really need to have a really good network. You have to have really great connections with, mortgage brokers, lawyers, property inspectors, property management companies, and they will know when a building is up for sale. And that's how you kind of, network your way into new listings. So just because you don't see the listings on, the commercial side of MLS, for example, it doesn't actually mean that there are no buildings for sale right now. They're being traded all the time behind, the scene, really, because a lot of investors do buy from each other based on their own goals and strategies.
Yeah, actually, great point. So how do you identify a great investment when the opportunity shows up? And, let's say multi-residential unit is available, either through your network or on MLS. How do you identify it as a good investment?
So that will depend on your strategy and your goals. So if you're the kind of investor that wants to apply the BRRRR strategy, where you're going to buy it, you're going to renovate, refinance, rent, and then you're going to repeat the process, then the deal is going to look very different than someone who is looking, let's say, to implement a cash for keys strategy, where they're going to buy the property and negotiate with all the tenants to either leave or renew their leases for the market rents. So it really depends on what your goals are and what your strategies are to identify a good deal. So a good deal for you might not be a good deal for somebody else, right? Because they have different strategies. But for me, I keep it very simple. I like my cash on cash return to be at least 5%. The higher, the better. Okay, I thought I lost my screen. The higher, the better, of course. And so, and a total, like a return on investment of usually I prefer 20 or more. So those are my basic requirements. If you're not looking at a specific strategy and you're just looking at numbers, those would be like my two numbers that I like to measure deals with.
So 5% cash positive and 20% rate of return.
So
Right.
it would be return on investment and cash on cash. So it's not cash flow or cash positive. It's your cash on cash. So whatever the amount you invested in, you're making 5% based on that amount a year.
Okay.
So it's a bit different.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So, and what is the due diligence process that you would use to make sure that it would actually meet your expectation for cash on cash and rate of return?
Yeah, so the due diligence process is similar to a regular, let's single family purchase, for example, but there's a few extra steps. So, you would go through the whole negotiation, home inspection. You would have an environmental phase assessment done. The appraisal process is a little bit more complicated and a bit more expensive depending on the type of property. But always, analyzing the numbers, making sure that you're receiving all the accurate and current information from the current owners to make sure that you're running your numbers based on what you're projecting. And so it's always good to double check all the numbers. So essentially, once you've checked out the numbers, you receive a list of all the expenses and they make sense, then you would proceed with like the following, right? So you would do the negotiation, the inspection, the appraisal, any environmental phases that you need to do. So those are pretty much the steps. So very similar to residential. The only difference is that the appraisal is more expensive and there may be an environmental assessment done as well, just because the size of the building.
Of course. And I assume you have an accountant, a lawyer who would actually be part of your team to make sure that the whole due diligence is verified by experts. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. So in the real estate investing world, we always call the team like the power team. So you always need to make sure you have a really good accountant, real estate lawyer, property manager, an inspector as well, bookkeeper, realtor. So lots of people to make everything flow and work effortlessly. So definitely need a solid team so that there are no delays, right?
I'm sure that your power team is inspired by you and your success, and at the same time, you keep them busy with what you do.
Yes, I mean we all help each other, and that's why I think another component of being able to grow so quickly is the amount of referrals that I give. I give a lot of people referrals when they come to me and they need, services. If I've worked with you and I really like how you deliver your services, I will always recommend people that I've worked with. And I feel like that's the one thing you can do for your community is to give referrals, right?
Absolutely. So Danielle, you only invest in Ottawa because I know you're based in Ottawa. And is that your investments are really very geographically focused, or is all over Canada?
So I personally manage the properties in Ottawa, but I have investments across Canada. We have a 6-unit property it's in Spruce Grove, so it's about an hour from Edmonton. And we have a few properties out in the East Coast as well that are being managed by our other partners. And then the 3 condos that are in Turks and Caicos. So if the deals make sense to me and we have an expert partner or an expert boots on the ground team member in that city, I'm open to investing in different areas of Canada because sometimes it makes sense to invest in another city based on your goals. So if your goal is cash flow, you may need to go to a city that has lower home prices so that you can, get that cash flow versus having homes or properties in the bigger cities where you're not going to get the cash flow, but the appreciation will be much higher. So there's always trade-off between appreciation and cash flow depending on the city that you're investing in.
Yeah, and that's a great way of diversifying as well geographically. I hear a lot of people who are hesitating on investing in real estate and talking about, they can buy properties outside of Canada that would be more affordable. So what's your reason to stay in Canada and invest in Canada versus investing outside?
So I'm not opposed to investing internationally. It's definitely a great option. I like investing in Canada because I know Canada. I'm an expert here in Canada. And so if I was to invest overseas, I would be definitely working with someone that is an expert in that city or in that country. But I do know a lot of people leaving to invest in countries that have more favorable terms and policies for investors. And that's totally okay. It's just, I think personally, it's a matter of preference, right? For me, I'm very confident in my ability to understand the Canadian market. So for me, this is where I invest for myself. But if I diversify and I go overseas, then I'm going to work with a partner that is the expert there. That's just how I like to do business. It's not, the right or the wrong way. I know lots of people that buy properties, let's say in Mexico or Costa Rica, because they've gone there, they really like the market, and then they started studying the market. So, it's to each their own, right? There's the real estate everywhere in the world is going to work, I think.
True. At the same time, I think that one of the points that most people do not consider is when you are in Canada, you can get a mortgage, but when you buy any properties outside of Canada, it's mainly cash. You need to have cash. Yes, it could be, lesser value, but at the same time, the property management, because you are not there, it could be more expensive. That's really what I see is happening. Whoever has cash, more cash, can invest no matter what part of the world. They are open to invest anywhere. But when you have limitation on the amount of cash flow and you can find partners here and get a mortgage here, so definitely would be a great starting point from your hometown to the country.
Yes.
Thank you, Danielle. It was great going through these strategies you have been personally using. There are definitely challenges along the way. Can you tell us more about some of the challenges you faced in real estate investment?
Definitely. There are many challenges, and I'll just go over maybe 3 of them so that we can, kind of at least give some action items for those who are listening. So the first challenge is not knowing where to go, how to start, and then feeling that like fear. So for me, the way I overcame that fear is by working with a coach or someone that is way more knowledgeable than me, so that I feel that if something were to go wrong, they've already experienced that and they're able to tell me, okay, this is what I did when it happened to me. So first is getting over that fear. That's definitely something I see right now, especially with the interest rates and the market, being the way it is now. So the way to overcome that fear is actually to work someone that has already gone through a market like this, right? So if you're working with someone that only, let's say, has 5 years of experience, they haven't actually seen the market decrease like this. So you want to work with someone that's been doing real estate for like over 20 years, right? So, or someone that really knows the market inside and out, and they've been in it long enough to kind of help you navigate this new environment that we're in. And number 2 is really vetting who you work with. So this can be, contractors or business partners or anyone really, because sometimes everything is going really well, but because we're in a new environment, people, are more stressed. People are more aware of certain things. So when things happen that aren't according to your plan, it really brings out different sides of people. So you really want to make sure that you've already had some sort of business dealing with this person before you commit to a long-term partnership or business relationship. So that's definitely something that I recommend, is like, if you're going to sign a contract with someone, or be in a business relationship, make sure that you know them well enough, and you know their work ethics and their communication style, so that you are better equipped to handle things when things go wrong, right? Because that's when it really matters. When things go well, everybody's happy. But when things don't go well, that's when everybody's stressed, anxious, and you really need to bring your A game forward. And you can only do that with people who have the same work ethics and values as you do, right?
Well said, Danielle. And that's applicable everywhere in life.
That's right. That's right.
Connecting people, building communities, helping clients to build multi-generational wealth through real estate.